So for people who are like unaware of what your game is, kind of give a brief description of what Galahad 3093 is all about. And am I saying it right? Is it 3093 or is it like 3000? You say it differently?
I say it 3093. By the way,
Okay.
the 93 is a direct reference to 1993, which is when Cyberstrike came out.
Okay, I get that now.
Galahad 3093 is a mech-based hero shooter. So what we've done is we've taken our favorite parts of mech games, and that would be where you have, obviously the bipedal mech running around, but also, the great part of being able to highly customize that warfighting vehicle. In our case, there's tons of weapons and tons of modules that can dramatically change how the mech, we call them lances, how the lances behave, and adapt that to your favorite playstyle. And you can make different loadouts for different situations and that sort of thing. And so that's always been a lot of fun with the mech stuff. The thing we changed about mechs is, and it's not unique, but it's certainly the direction we're going, is that they are fast and nimble versus slow and lumbering. I'm not a fan of the slow and lumbering mechs. I like to have a lot of mobility. So we built a lot of mobility into these things. They can get around the map fast, and you can get so good at it that you can traverse the entire map in some cases in seconds if you know what you're doing. It's very skill based, and it's very vertical as well. We take advantage of that up direction, and we build maps that go up. And since you have rocket packs and jump jets and stuff like that, you're able to get around in ways that are kind of built around getting to these high places, which are great for sniping and scouting, bombarding with indirect fire, that kind of stuff. So that's a lot of fun. And then we took from the hero genre, we brought in heroes, which we call knights. Since we're using this Arthurian legend theme here, we call them knights. And each of the knights are patterned after one of the Arthurian legends, like Arthur or Nimue, Guinevere, that sort of thing. The knights each bring a passive and active ability, and you can take any of the lances that you created and pair that with any of the knights you have access to. And so that creates this combinatorial effect of, the possibilities on the battlefield.
So I want to talk about, like, obviously mech games, there's a lot of customization in these, and that's what drives people to play them. They enjoy that. How customizable are your lances? Is it 2 guns and then a body? How does it work?
You start with a chassis. There's currently light, medium, heavy, and super heavy. By the way, the most, it changes everything about the mobility and the armor of the ultimate lance that you're going to create, with the heavy being the most armored and the super heavy being less armored in exchange for bristling a lot more weapons. And then on that, you have hard points. Basically, you have a left and right weapon, and you have 2 shoulder-mounted weapons as well. And then you can choose a deployable, which would be like shields or mines, tracking mines or drones, that sort of thing. So the weapons on your primary weapons, one of the things we want to do is make the interface to the game is clear to a shooter crowd, right? So, your left and right button, or you're firing your left and right weapons, and holding down control would fire your left and right, respectively, shoulder-mounted weapons. Some of those can even be automatically firing. Like there's one that shoots down indirect fire that's coming in automatically, so you don't really have to do anything with that. And then you have a plethora of modules that you can put onto your lance. You're ended up spending points to do this. So there's a certain number of points you have and a certain number of slots to put modules into.
Right, point system for balance, right?
Right, it balances it out, and it allows us to make sure that regardless of the stuff that any player unlocks, they still have the same number of points. So they may have a lot of super high level stuff, but they can't bring it all at once, right? But they can use it to try to build something around. And so that keeps it balanced and fair, regardless of how far people have grinded, how much they've gotten through the grind or their progression system. And so anyway, what's really interesting is that we're building, just constantly introducing more ways to customize the lance itself. And then in the next step, which is coming out in a week or so, each of the weapons also is going to feature that very same thing, where you can put modules that change the behavior of the weapons. Like we have one weapon that is really good at shooting very long distances, very slowly, and doing a lot of damage, aka a sniper-like weapon. And you can put a module on there, and suddenly it'll do lock-on in addition to that, but at a point cost, and it takes a module slot, right, from a weapon module slot in that case. And so there'll be a lot of variety. So even though even with the given number of weapons, there's a lot of variations of one of those weapons or deployables as well.
So from a cosmetic standpoint, can you customize what color your mech is and stuff like that?
Yeah, you can pick skins for your mech, which come in patterns and different colors are applied to those. And the system that I am currently tinkering away on right now, ironically, is the next step of that, where you apply decals on top of that in order to really dress up your mech. And then the next step after that, we're going to being able to add geometric additions to your mech, whatever those might be. We haven't created any of them yet, but we have conceptually what we're going to do with that. And then ultimately we're going to have it where you can like swap out pieces for different looks. And so there's going to be a lot of visual variety.
And I always ask this because obviously the game will be available on Steam. Can people upload their own designs and put them on the mech? Is that something you guys have fiddled around with? I know it can be a headache from a legal standpoint sometimes.
Man, we just did a submit your own emoji contest. It might be the wrong time to ask me that question.
Just scrolling through, that's inappropriate. That's also inappropriate. Like, it's hard because if it's user generated, you really don't have any control unless you pay someone to monitor everything before it gets into the
moderate game. It. There's no way around it.
Yeah.
Well, I know one thing that we do have planned, which is uploading your banners for your clans. There will be a clan system, and that keeps it down to a dull roar. It's not everyone doing it. It's the clan leadership, so that they have to get to a certain status before they're allowed to do that. But we definitely want to be able to customize that, plant your flag on the terrain, or maybe spray paint it on a wall or whatever. But yeah, we'll have to moderate it.
And you said, so obviously you want to keep the two-leg chassis because you want the game to be fairly quick, not as fast as like a Fortnite game, but fairly quick. So that means that rules out tread leggings. Yeah.
Right now we're going with the bipedal version of mechs, and all the motion is procedural, and it works really well for the type of highly agile kind of dance that our mechs do in the environment. I mean, it is like a ballet when you're really good at it. And it's not just your ground mobility, but your air mobility that plays a big part in it.
Yeah, so moving on from that, talk about the verticality. We've seen some popular shooters experiment with verticality before, but like they kind of quickly abandon it because they're not sure how to do it, especially in like a first-person shooter. But it fits so well in mech games where your mechs, well, they can't exactly fly, but they can jump really high, right?
Well, ours have jump jets, which allow them to, just kind of blast off in the direction they're facing. You do have some control, not a lot of control while you're flying through the air. And there are modules that you can put on that give you even more control over that kind of stuff, of like air brakes and all those kind of things. And you combine that with knights. Like one of our knights has a short range teleport ability. So you combine those two things, you can jump jet in a general direction and then finish it off with a teleport to get to the precise place you want to go, for example. You put all these things together and you can get some amazing mobility. And also the maps feature things like teleport pads as well that go between key places and recharges. So you can like chain these things together in combos in order to like really go from one end of the map all the way to the other one. It's almost like, it's like flexing, right? To show that you can even pull that kind of maneuver off. And that makes for great Twitch content in the end.
Do you know how I know you've played Quake in Unreal Tournament? It's because you have teleport pads in your game. That's how I know. Those are great. I mean, I feel like more multiplayer games should have those, but a lot of them don't.
Yeah, in the original Cyberstrike, we had we called them flingers. So the minute you stand on them, they just like a catapult, just fling you in whatever direction you're facing. You just fly through the air in that direction and land wherever you land.
Rocket jumps, again, something that's kind of like, there's been a few games that have their, like, you can do your own rocket jump, but like the pads, people don't put them in games anymore. It's sad. So it's cool to see that in your game though, the teleport pads and that kind of stuff. You don't really see those mechanics in online shooters a lot.
Yeah, and all of that stuff is tied to the bases right now. In the game mode that we're implementing, there are multiple bases and you capture them. So all of the facilities, like the teleport pads that are near there, are tied to whoever owns that, right? And so that means that there's even more, strategic value in holding a base other than the points that it provides, for your team to win. It also opens up these facilities for you to use. Except you can also install a module called Double Agent. And when you have Double Agent, you can use any of the facilities regardless of who owns them. So that's a lot of fun. It's actually the one I carry all the time.
So you have all these customizational options on the mechs themselves and on the lances and all these additional modules that alter even further. But let's talk about like the pilots you call knights for a minute. Like you added a passive ability and an active ability as well. Things must get really crazy really quickly.
Well, but it revolves around familiar interface paradigms. All right. So like, you have an active ability that powers up and you hit the Q key and it activates and then it cools down. You see that in Apex Legends or any number of games that have that kind of thing. So there's nothing that if you play any of these other games, you won't be able to adapt to really quick. It uses those conventions. And the passive is passive, so you don't have to think about it, right?
I love passive abilities, yeah, because I don't have to hit a button. I'm like, this just does it automatically. I don't have to worry about it. This is great. One thing, like you said earlier, there's a defensive add-on or module or shoulder-mounted cannon that just shoots missiles out automatically, and I don't have to worry about it. That's one less button I don't have to press. So I thank you for that.
Yeah. But keep in mind, it can be overwhelmed, right? It has a fire rate.
Right.
So if you get people, like multiple people, laying down indirect fire on your position, it's not going to save you. It's going to just like be a consolation that you got hit by slightly less than you otherwise might have.
What are some of the challenges in making obviously it's a first person shooter where like it's fast paced, but having the mechs have a sense of weight to them in game as you're playing them? What are some of the challenges with that?
Oh, that is a big challenge. You tend to lose there's this whole idea of human scale versus mech scale, right? So these things are 20, 40 feet tall. But when you're running around the world, which is designed for them to fit into, the openings and buildings are designed big enough, obviously, for them to get into. And you start to lose a sense of scale. And scale has a lot to do with weight, our perception of weight or mass. And so we try to put some human scale things in there, but because they're so small, they seem like details and you just don't quite notice them. So we're trying to amp up the human scale stuff. Just to sell that a little better. But yeah, it has been some people have, been like, these things don't feel weighty enough. So I go in there and I tweak things so they got more bounce to them when they land and that sort of stuff that, but it's kind of like, if you think about it from a physical standpoint or a real physical standpoint, these things don't take any falling damage because it's so vertical. So when they land, you would expect for them to like slam down and have this slow recovery. But it's no fun to play, right?
Right.
You want to keep moving instantly, so you never want to stop the player artificially. So you have to like do away with some of that and just as a compromise and say, look, mobility is more important than whether that looked exactly right for something that was actually made like that. So I try to find these like compromise points. I do have it where the thing has a spring motion and it collapses down and then slowly comes up. But at the same time, you can be walking away while that happens.
Can you guys talk about how you balance the game? Because obviously, like you said, with the knights, they bring a passive and an active ability. Then you got to take into account all the modulars and weapons they have on each lance, and then kind of like do like some like Excel spreadsheet data to make sure everything is balanced and working correctly.
Yeah, we build elaborate Excel spreadsheet models, and we use some other tools as well, and data analytics coming back to us. Although that will play a bigger role once more of the public is involved rather than just us. But even before that, one of the things that we do at Simultronics is that every day, every work day, we're working on the game at 2:00 p.m. We check in, everyone checks in whatever they want to see in the playtest for that day, and we start builds, and then by 2:30 or 3, depending on what happens there, we're in there playtesting every day for like 1 or 2 or 3 hours. So it has intense testing just from us internally. That's everyone on the team doing that. And sometimes we invite other people in for those play tests as well. And then of course we're at a stage now where we're doing public testing. So we call them betas. Whether it's alpha or beta is not really important, but we call them betas. And essentially every 2 weeks or so, we open up the game for people to come in and play for about 3 hours and gather a lot of data and feedback at that point. And this is going to go on. We used to do this with, you know, handing out Steam keys, but there's only so many Steam keys Steam will give you. So starting now, we switched over to Steam's new playtest feature, which they invited us to test. We're testing their testing thing. And this Saturday at 7 Central Time will be our first playtest using the Steam playtest feature. And the neat thing about that is, in order to get in on that, all you got to do is go to the store page for Galahad 3093 and click on request access right there, and you're in. You don't have to go through there's no velvet rope or anything like that. You'll be able to play.